There are several things that were left open, intended to deal with, hopefully today. The first thing is a whole long discussion. What precedes what? Did Sechel come first, or did Ratzon come first? And we applied all kinds of logical structures to this. It is important that when we speak, especially when we speak about intangible concepts, both Ratzon and Sechel, even though we experience it, but we don't have a tangible definition of either one of them. These are neshama qualities. They're not goof type of qualities. You cannot put Ratzon in a keli, nor can you put Sechel per se in a keli. And there are several things I want to comment on regarding this long discussion yesterday on the WhatsApp. Number one, we have to focus and relate to the subject matter. It is not, nothing exists due to its name. The name is applied to a reality. Call it Sechel, call it Ratzon, call it what you want. And you can play around with the name and say, oh, since this name is mentioned first, then this must be the first. You have to attend to what the name stands for. Why did it get a name in the first place? And what is the meaning of this name? What do we mean by Ratzon? What do we mean by Sechel? Not what came first and what came second. In terms of the naming is totally insignificant. It's meaningless, the whole question. We mentioned many, many times. Sechel, especially chochmah, is a direct flow from the nefesh. And when we talk about chochmah, we have to recognize this reality. What are you talking about? Are you talking about chochmah, so to speak, the effect of chochmah? Or are you talking about chochmah in its reality? And similarly, we talk about Ratzon. Ratzon is for sure a nefesh. Excuse me. The truth is, chochmah is a flow from flows out of nefesh. It's outside of nefesh, but it flows from the nefesh. It is clearly a reflection of what nefesh is. Ratzon is not even a flow from the nefesh. Ratzon is nefesh. The power of Ratzon is in the nefesh. if we reflect on the words, on what we are talking about, it is important, like I pointed out all the time, that we are talking to your own Sechel, not talking to your guf. You have to reflect in your own life, in your own nefesh, living quality. What is Ratzon and what is chochmah? You can define it maybe clearly too, but you know that you're talking about something alive, something that you have a personal stake in the matter, a personal recognition of it. This is why I pointed out several times that the Rebbe says, make a statement. Usually, every statement of Rebbe is further elaborated on, great length. Sometimes he makes a statement of tremendous profundity, and he does not elaborate it. He just makes a statement. And I pointed out what's behind this. Why? In what way does Rebbe expect us to take it if he doesn't elaborate? He doesn't present it to us on a silver platter. And the answer is?
To remain on this call, press 1.
That he does not want to elaborate on it. Because once he starts elaborating, you're not talking about the real thing. You say there is a living thing and lifeless thing. You say, oh, what's the difference? Oh, a living thing can move, a lifeless thing doesn't move. You start defining from that perspective, are you talking about life? To a living human being, do you have to explain what life is? Relative to lifeless? When we're talking about on the WhatsApp, what came first, Ratzon or Sechel or chochmah? It shook me so deeply. I said, what is going on? We're just not thinking what we're saying. Some of the logic is something akin to the following. You go into a shoe store. So the shoe store is there before you even got there. The feet on which you're going to put on these shoes are first now exposed after you're in the shoe store. So what came first? What came first? The shoe store. The shoe? The shoes are there, and now you bring the foot to accommodate the shoe. If you follow this kind of silly logic, blind logic that you don't even apply yourself to what you're talking about, This is what you can end up with. The same process, literally, when I was looking at it, I was so shocked. Ratzon and Sechel, these are two worlds. And we're not thinking what we're talking about. Just to illustrate the point, I said the Rebbe says a statement. There were several across the time we mentioned many times. The latest one is I pointed out by Beis Kuf Tes and Nevada. Ba'amitas inin pnimim makim. Ba'amitas inin pnimim makim. That doesn't elaborate what amitas mean. I'd like to elaborate on this and bring it, so to speak, to compelling realization, and hopefully we'll work on it internally. We always said that Re'iyah, sight, is a proper moshel, is a sight on physical level is like chochmah. And we also mentioned many aspects that are unique in sight. Please follow this. One of the principles in sight is that sight is a direct flow. Sight is not a recreation of what you see. It's instantaneous. It's automatic. Even the word automatic is not suitable for sight, because it doesn't even occur to a process. Automatic is a process. It's an automatic process. Sight is not a process. The only thing that in the only process aspect inside is that you open your eyes. But please understand, before you open eyes, you also see, but you don't see what you see because you block your sight, you block your vision. But the reality of sight exists when your eyes are closed. This instantaneous aspect that is demonstrated, that we can see clearly inside, this exists on a higher level in kochas and nefesh, and one of them is chochmah. This is why the Rebbe doesn't elaborate on it. This is instantaneous recognition. A living human being, a living nefesh, has instantaneous recognition of the word amitus. anything that emes, amitus, cannot be obliviated. That's like in sight, you can't obliviate that which is visible. You can close your eyes, but it does not make it obliviated. As I said, you see it even when your eyes are closed. Actually, you don't know what you see. When you open eyes, you know what you see. But when you open your eyes and you see that which you saw, and you know it was there before you opened your eyes. And you saw it before you got to open your eyes. I mentioned many, many times. There's chochmah, binah, v'das. In this order. Binah is a very, very clear and concrete knowledge. Hasoga. You bring it into your own world, into your own thought process. It's wonderful. But binah is how this Indian exists in the world. Chochmah is how this Indian exists in truth. If you are going to base your reality on binah, then you have a worldly truth, a basis world. Chochmah gives you a basis, a divine basis. This is why I mentioned many, many times. After binah sets in, and after you have comprehension, and you remember what this is all based on. Remember what the neshama of it all. What is the reality of it all? But the reality of it all is the neshama, is the chochmah. And chochmah I'm going to make it, so to speak, a statement, elaboration, so to speak. But hopefully we will not lose sight of what we're talking about. Just like sight, which is a moshel for chochmah. Despite the fact that sight is an instantaneous thing, there's no process in sight. Yet, sight takes place in mokim uzman, in a worldly environment. You see something that is really physically there. How can something that's a physical presence in mokim uzman, how can that be instantaneous? How can that be truth?
How can that be truth? How can it be an appropriate mashal for
chochmah? How can it be? How can that have an instantaneous reality? It's in mokim uzman. In order to facilitate moichin, in order to facilitate the presence of moichin and chochmah. Since it's a flow from the nefesh, in order to facilitate that flow from the nefesh on the outside of the nefesh in the world. And yet this is what's taking place. We have an instantaneous cognition, as if it's a fundamental reality, but it's a world. What is the means by which this is transformed world that world is transformed in something real, to the extent that it's instantaneously there. In other words, it is really true, but world is not true. So for this, we say, and it says, that in order to be chochmah, there has to be Ratzon first. You have to want to recognize world. Ratzon is what brings the nefesh outside the nefesh. Because you want to recognize the world, this is why you actually see it. This one thing is one thing with the nefesh itself. Why do you want? Because this is the imperative thing in nefesh. This is what nefesh is about. To be functioning in the world.
Really? Even though initially it didn't want to come down here, and unto itself it's got no real interest in the world?
So you answer that question.
Well,
Go ahead.
It gets that it's on a mission here, so it gets into it.
1 second. On whose mission?
God's mission here.
Don't forget that.
So it sort of goes beyond what its own desire is and says, okay.
Oh, it is in God's mission. It's in God's reality.
Right, okay. But again, its own will, like we just said, is rather to be...
Its own wish.
Okay.
Its will is to be with God.
Its wish, okay. Its wish is to be with God.
No, its wish is to be directly, not through world, but this is its mission. That this is what it wants.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it fulfills a divine mission.
It's fair to say this is like Plan B for the nefesh. Like Plan A is to be
not true.
With
number one, it's not true.
Okay.
Not true. The nefesh is at all times conscious of its connection to God, or its unity with God. That unity can never be severed.
And due to that,
again, we are going into an area that we're not capable of fully understanding. It's not necessary.
Just okay. It's just.
Ratzon
Yeah.
is a means to identify, the nefesh to identify itself outside, on the outside. But it really wants to identify that outside, because that's where it was put. I hope I can get you to see this. We spoke about the other day, a person is in a dirty place and he despises it. And yet he attends to it, he focuses in and sees what can we do to improve this place. In order to do that, he has to actually relate to the place. But he despises it. What does he despise? The place or its dirt? Without the place, there is not a him. There's no him. He does not despise the place. He sees himself as being in this place. But he sees himself as being in this place in a pure and clean manner. And the dirt, it doesn't belong there. This is not my place. Therefore, what am I going to do? Clean up the dirt. Get down to the bottom of this place. Get down to reality.
True answer.
What's his pet problem?
I told him to stop. To just use the
Yeah,
link.
okay.
Use the link.
All right. So the only concrete point that I ask you to focus in and reflect in your own crevices of your own intellect. There's no way for it to be presented, in full elaboration, but reflect in your own mind, over and over and over again. Yes, indeed, you open your eyes, and everything that's visible is automatically seen by you. What is taking place? What is this? What is this represent? This thing that you see is something completely separate from you. It may be, as a matter of fact, a mile away from you. This mile is covered in sight instantaneously. In the bright day, they say you can say, 10 miles ahead? And that is instantaneous. What does it mean? How did you get there? Sight relates not to a worldly process where it takes time to go from one foot, another foot, but it relates to the reality of it. And the reality of it is there all the time. The entire reality. This is what sight is about. Sight is is like chochmah. It sees things from a truth perspective. It did not take God 10 hours to create a 10-mile stretch. It takes us weeks to pave a road. But that's us, because we are working with, so to speak, in the Mokim with man. But the truth of it is a godly reality. And there it is instantaneous. Everything is present instantaneously. You see it because of this reality aspect, not because you can journey with your eyes across the distance. We spoke about this also many, many times. That when you look across the room, you don't cover a distance. You see it in its place directly. So when you start talking about Ratzon versus Sechel, which comes first, please first of all identify what you're talking about. To yourself. Don't take words, so to speak, out of context. Independently. What is Ratzon? Ratzon doesn't exist independently of the nefesh. Neither does chochmah exist independently of God. Or sight, it doesn't exist independently of the reality of the world. This is why every once in a while the Rebbe comes up with a statement and he says, here it is. If you don't see it, clear like your eyelids. But there's no way that I'm going to present it to you otherwise. All right. So our time is up, and I said some things we attended directly, some things indirectly, but the Indian, this whole confusion, I think we opened up, so to speak. We cleared it up. We took the clouds out away. Okay, so this is it. So have a great day.